When I first started diving into real estate data, I had trouble finding property information. I needed data to power my apps and help automate processes like building lists for recent foreclosures, liens, out of state owners, and more. Well, I found a solution using Real Estate API. My name is Ariel Herrera, your fellow data scientist with the Tech and Real Estate channel, where we bridge the gap between real estate and technology. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use Real Estate API to get property data based on motivated selling factors. My goal with this channel is to help you use data-driven solutions to empower your real estate journey. So please like this video and subscribe so we can reach a wider audience. All right, let's get started. So right now I'm on Real Estate API's homepage, and you might be thinking, what is an API? So if I was to send you data, maybe all the properties in New York City, I would likely send that to you maybe in a spreadsheet. But that could get cumbersome sending spreadsheets through emails, and it's a lot of data to work with. What happens when we try to look at all the data across the US? We can't send that in a Gmail, right? That's where APIs come in. It's a programmatic way to send data, and it makes it a lot easier to obtain versus doing methods like web scraping, because usually the data is already clean. So in this case, we're looking at Real Estate API. They already have information of properties across the US, both on and off market. So if they're listed on the MLS and if they're not listed too. This data has information that helps us find motivated sellers too. So I'm going to walk you through the docs real quick, and then we're going to dive into some Python programming to be able to extract this data. Don't worry if you're not a Python programmer. There's ways to do this without any code at all. So here I'm going to developers, and we're going to be able to see the documentation of what is actually in this API. What's the data that we can receive? So on the left-hand side, we see a series of endpoints. Think of this as folders or files within those folders and how we're able to hit each and every one. So we see here property search, and this is likely the one that you'd want to hit first. So property search is for list building and search counts. You can use this API to implement your own comparables API or property analytics. So if we go down, we could see that overall this is going to allow us to pull from a national data set of properties. A use case you may have is to automate maybe your list building that you currently work with if you're a wholesaler or if you're an investor, or maybe you're even a programmer as well into prop tech. You want to build your own app. Well, this data could help you too. So here as we go down, we could see what parameters we need to send to the API to be able to get back data. There's some that are required and some that are not required. In this case, we have to make sure that we're sending data related to the location, because we can't just grab everything, right? We have to say what filed in the folder of data do we want to obtain. So there's a couple that we could use: zip, state, city and state, and some more geography terms. I'm going to focus on city and state, and my particular city is Tampa, Florida, so I will use this as an example, but you could use any other city. So as we go down, we could see some other parameters as well. So we can dive into the property type, just look at single family homes, multifamily, land, condo, mobile, or other. Then we can look at specific tags for MLS if you have already an MLS linking there. Then the part that everyone's probably interested in, what are the motivated seller pieces that we can obtain? So we can see sellers that are absentee owners. We can look at those properties that are for auction. We could look at properties that were bought by cash buyers. We could see recent deaths, foreclosure, free and clear, and a lot more. So some that I do want to highlight that I find interesting, for example, are out-of-state owners. So if we go down to out-of-state, we'll see it here. Why is out-of-state interesting? Well, this could be someone who is a tired landlord. Maybe they currently reside in New Jersey. They have a property, say, in Tampa, Florida, that they rent out. They've been doing this for a while. They're now in their 60s, 70s. They want to retire, and they want to offload the property. This could be a good list to work off of, because likely these sellers may also have high equity in their property, and we could do some other creative financing. In addition, out-of-state owner could be someone who has a second home. Maybe they're snowbirds. They live in Detroit for part of the year, and then they live in Tampa the other half. But they maybe decide, you know what, I'm already at a certain age. I wanted to stay in the warm weather. So that property in Detroit just sits there. And that could be right for the taking as well. So how we work with this data, if you use the link below, you'll need to get an API key. You could sync with the real estate API team, and they will provide you that. Next, we could see on the right-hand side that we have some code here. So if I go all the way back up, you can program or be able to extract this data with different languages. We see examples for JavaScript, for PowerShell, R. In my case, I'm going to use Python. So here I can actually enter things into the parameters. As I said, I'm going to research city and state. So I could put Tampa, Florida here. And you see on the right-hand side, the code has now added those parameters that I seek to grab data for. So here, if I actually copy this information, I could bring this to my Google Colab notebook. Google Colab is a free environment to be able to program in Python as well as share your code. So you don't have to have it installed at all. That's usually the place where people pause and sometimes give up on programming because of having to deal with installations. But with Google Colab, you can actually use a notebook link below and make a copy yourself. So here, I am importing some libraries we're going to need, including requests to be able to request data from the API, as well as pandas to work with the data once we have it. Think of pivot tables or VLOOKUPs. We could do that programmatically with Python, so we only code it once, and each and every time it's automatic. So I'm going to press play here. Then the next step is reading in your real estate API key. So here I'm going to get my real estate API key and then bring it in. All right, once entered, we now want to add an additional piece here to read in our API key. Great, so now we've copied our code over, we've added our API key down below, and we're going to be grabbing data from Tampa. As of right now, I haven't filtered on anything like foreclosures, for example. I'm just looking to see if this works. So I'm going to press play here. And here I see I have some data. I have information on Tampa, absentee owner false. It's really hard to read because it's just text. So let's transform this into a data frame. So I quickly transformed this into a data frame by using pandas. I transformed our response into a JSON object, so key value pairs, and I selected the data piece because I want to look at those rows of property records and wrap this in pandas data frame. So here we have 50 rows of property records. So one single row, we see information on an address. This one's 6216 North 41st Street in Tampa. We could see what the assessed value is and then look at some tags that we were observing before. So it's a 2-bath, 3-bed, and we could see estimated equity, what the equity percentage is, and a lot of other fields that we could find to be useful. But having just a bunch of text of data may not always be the best. So what I'm going to do is set this to a data frame variable, df, and let's actually try to plot some of these fields so that we can understand a little bit better how our data set looks. So I'm going to enter using Plotly Express, our data frame. And here, let's say we want to look at the sample set, how much equity homeowners have on a histogram. So I could do equity percent, for example. Actually, this would just be equal to. And here we could see that for the sample set of data, that most of the homeowner's equity sits are between 40 to 60%. And there's some that actually have, in this case, it's 100%, but the chart's a little bit off, 100% equity, which may help us when trying to do, say, a seller financing deal. But I know this might be a little bit new for some of you who have just dived into Python for the first time, or maybe never before. I do have a completely free portion on YouTube that gets you from zero to hero if you want to learn Python programming, and it's all using real estate examples. But I did make this a little bit easier. I actually took what comes from this API and made it into a little soft app to be able to query information. So I'm actually using Hex, which is a really, really cool tool, being able to leverage Python, SQL, create charts on the fly without programming at all, and be able to create some quick visuals that others can interact with too. So here I am going to enter my real estate API key again. And for my city, it's going to be Tampa, State, Florida. Next, I'm looking at, let's try to truncate this a bit. Let's look at single family homes only between 1 to 4 beds, for example. And let's say square footage no less than 1,000. Let's look at home buyers that have owned their property for at least a year. And let's look at out-of-state owners. We could look at some search conditions, tax lien. And if I click run, what's now happening is the app is now taking the API key and all the parameters that I have, sending it to the API, and then it's going to retrieve a new data set. So we could see here that our query ran successfully. Of my parameters that I input, there were 48 results, and the median listing price was about $209,000 for these properties. Median days on market, 8, I guess just for those that were listed on the MLS. And from our 48 count, we could see that of those properties with the tax liens, 47 of them are actually high equity, which is awesome because, again, we could do maybe seller financing deal. There's a good portion that were actually bought by cash and that were corporate owned too. We could see there's also a significant amount where there's absentee owner. So this gives us a quick visual of the type of properties that are in our list. And then we can go down to a data preview, and this looks a little bit nicer than it did in Google Colab. We could see the rows and columns of the data that we have here. We have information on the property itself and of the different tags, as well as estimated equity and some other really valuable information. We can download this to a CSV file and work with it in Excel if we'd like to, or we can copy this and maybe send this off to a VA or someone else on our team. Great. So this app is actually readily available for you to use. As long as you have your real estate API key, which you get your link down below, you could use it to start to filter on what maybe your list is and download a sample set of it. You could then use the Python code in the developer part of Real Estate API to start building your list programmatically and then say, automate that to get it into a spreadsheet. There are some really neat things we could do with this, but I want to hear from you. What do you want to see? Do you want to see me build lists for foreclosures? Do you want to see me link this to Zapier with no code? Do you want to see me do this on AWS where we have an automatic feed every week? Let me know what you want to see. I will build it. And together we're going to help automate our processes and really explode our real estate investor journey. All right. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe.